You don't need more motivation, you need mastery. That one sentence might sting a little, especially if you've spent years chasing feel-good videos, 5 a.m. routines, and productivity hacks. But deep down, you know it's true. Motivation is fickle. Discipline isn't. Emotion is unstable. Mastery isn't. Think about it. The world is faster, louder, more chaotic than ever. Every morning, you wake up to notifications, expectations, distractions, decisions. Before you even step out of bed, your mind is already racing. Deadlines, bills, that thing someone said to you last week, that text you haven't replied to, that opportunity you might miss. And through it all, you're expected to smile, to perform, to stay composed. But here's the truth no one wants to admit. Most people today are silently falling apart. Not in dramatic breakdowns, not in Hollywood-style emotional meltdowns, but quietly, invisibly, through chronic stress, inner numbness, short tempers, sleepless nights, and a constant sense of being behind in life, behind in purpose, behind in peace. We wear the mask of control, but inside we're reactive, defensive, overwhelmed. It shows in the little things, how quickly we snap at someone we love, how anxious we get when we don't check our phones, how easily a rude comment or minor setback can ruin an entire day. We've become slaves to emotion, prisoners to impulse. And the worst part is we think that's normal, that this is just how life is now. But what if it's not? What if emotional chaos isn't a permanent condition, but a sign that we're out of alignment with something deeper? There's a quiet truth that's been buried beneath all the noise, a timeless way of thinking and being practiced by emperors, warriors, philosophers, and survivors for over 2,000 years. A path not of escape, but of endurance, not of suppression, but transformation. That path is Stoicism, not the pop culture version that tells you to be cold and emotionless, but the real thing, a deeply practical discipline that helps you master your emotions, sharpen your thinking, and walk through the storms of life with clarity, courage, and calm. In this video, we're not going to hype you up, we're going to ground you. Because this isn't a motivational talk, it's a blueprint for mental strength. We'll walk through 10 Stoic habits that will help you rewire your inner world, from the way you react to criticism to how you handle fear, shame, anger, and uncertainty. These are not lofty ideas. They're proven tools, psychological weapons, inner workouts. So, if you're tired of overreacting, if you're tired of being thrown off by the smallest things, if you're tired of the mental noise running your life, stay with me. You're about to learn what it means to truly master your emotions, not by controlling the world, but by mastering yourself. Let's begin. Let's talk about the invisible war we're all fighting but no one sees. It starts here, inside the mind. Most people don't realize it, but every single day we're in a constant battle, not with others, not with fate, not even with circumstance, but with our own perceptions, with our impulses, with the meaning we assign to events. You miss a deadline suddenly, you're a failure. Someone criticizes you, you spiral into self-doubt. A plan doesn't work out, you panic, catastrophize, shut down. Notice the pattern? The real damage isn't caused by what happens. It's caused by how we think about what happens. This is the storm within. Modern society tells us that external success is everything, that status, appearance, and speed define our worth. But while we chase control over the outside world, we lose the most important power of all, the ability to govern our inner world. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, ruled over millions, but he wrote most about self-mastery. In his private journal, Meditations, he didn't talk about fame or politics. He talked about anger, about grief, about anxiety, about staying rooted in reason when the world was on fire. He once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's where true power begins. You've probably noticed it in others. That one person in your life who never seems rattled, who doesn't over-explain or overreact, who moves slowly, speaks carefully, and listens deeply. You know they've been through things, but somehow they carry it with grace. That's not luck. That's not genetics. That's training. Emotional mastery isn't something you're born with. It's something you build, day by day, choice by choice, thought by thought. The truth is, you don't have to be reactive. You don't have to explode when angry, shut down when anxious, or get derailed by what others say or do. You can build an inner fortress, a place no chaos can reach. That's what Stoicism teaches. And in the next chapter, we'll break it down not in theory, but in practice. What is Stoicism really about? How can ancient wisdom help you handle modern chaos? And more importantly, how can you become the kind of person the world cannot shake? We're just getting started. Before we dive into the 10 core habits, we need to get something clear. What is Stoicism and what isn't it? Most people misunderstand Stoicism. They hear the word and picture someone cold, emotionless, or detached from life. A stone-faced philosopher sitting in silence, ignoring everything around them. But that's not Stoicism, not even close. True Stoicism is not about suppressing emotions. It's about understanding them, seeing them clearly, without letting them dictate your actions. It's about creating a space between what happens to you and how you choose to respond. That space is power. At its heart, Stoicism is a practical philosophy. Born in ancient Greece, refined in the Roman Empire, but designed surprisingly for exactly the world we live in now. A world of uncertainty, of noise, of constant comparison and emotional volatility. The Stoics didn't live in quiet temples. They lived in political turmoil, economic instability, betrayal, war, personal loss. And still, they found stillness, strength, serenity. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire while dealing with plague, war, and personal grief. Epictetus was born a slave, crippled in childhood, and yet taught others how to find freedom not in politics, but in the mind. Seneca was a political advisor in one of Rome's most corrupt governments, and yet he wrote about the calm that comes from aligning action with virtue. These weren't monks, they were warriors of the inner world. And that's why Stoicism works today, because it wasn't built for peace, it was built for chaos. At its core, Stoicism asks one question: what can you control? And everything else, you let go. Can you control what others think of you? Number. Can you control the weather, the economy, or your boss's mood? Number. Can you control whether someone betrays you, insults you, or misunderstands you? Absolutely not. But here's what you can control: your beliefs, your values, your decisions, your inner dialogue, your habits, your reactions. This distinction, the line between what is up to us and what is noticed, the foundation of all emotional strength. It's what separates the reactive from the resilient, the scattered from the centered. Epictetus put it like this: happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle: some things are within our control, and some things are not. Imagine living every day from that perspective, not expecting the world to bend to your will, but learning to bend yourself with grace. Not demanding life be easy, but becoming stronger for whatever it throws your way. This isn't passive acceptance, it's active preparation. It's not giving up, it's training yourself to show up with power, clarity, and poise, no matter what the situation. Modern psychology is catching up to what the Stoics knew all along. Cognitive behavioral therapy only, of the most widely used and effective psychological tools today's, built on the same principle. Change the thought, and you change the emotion. Change the perspective, and you change the outcome. But the Stoics didn't need a therapist's office. They used journaling, meditation, reflection, habit building, and self-discipline to train their minds daily. They practiced what we now call premeditation of adversity, visualizing worst-case scenarios, not to suffer in advance, but to be ready. They kept gratitude journals. They took cold plunges. They sought voluntary discomfort. They delayed gratification. They built mental calluses. And they did it so they could lead without losing their center. Because Stoicism is not a theory. It's a lifestyle. It's a blueprint for becoming someone the world can't shake. And that's what this video is about. Because let's be honest, you're not here to be inspired for a few minutes and then go back to the same emotional roller coaster. You're here because something deeper in you is ready to shift. Ready to stop spiraling over things you can't control. Ready to stop wasting energy on what doesn't matter. Ready to take your power back not by force, but through discipline. And discipline isn't just about pushing harder. It's about seeing clearly. So here's the promise. In the next section, I'll walk you through 10 Stoic practices used by emperors and modern leaders alike that will rewire how you handle stress, setbacks, conflict, and emotion. Each one is practical, each one is backed by modern psychology, and each one will help you build a version of yourself that doesn't flinch when life punches hard. You don't need to control the world. You just need to control your response to it. That is the beginning of inner freedom. Are you ready? Then let's begin the work. 1. Purpose is your compass. When life spins fast, it's easy to lose yourself. You become reactive, distracted, pulled in 100 directions. Days blur. Choices feel forced. You start to wonder if you're moving or just drifting. That's what happens when you live without a clear sense of purpose. You wake up, check your phone, check your calendar, respond to what's urgent, but not what's important. You follow the momentum of life, not the direction of your values. And deep down, a quiet anxiety grows. Am I just existing? The Stoics believed that purpose is the root of stability. Marcus Aurelius called it living according to your nature, which meant living in alignment with your deepest principles, not what society tells you to value, not what's trending, but what you, in the stillness of your own mind, know to be right, meaningful, and true. Without that compass, you're not just directionless, you're vulnerable. To peer pressure, to social comparison, to every slight and storm that shows up in your inbox or on your feed. Without purpose, life doesn't just feel overwhelming, it feels hollow. But when you do have purpose, when your values are clear, when your mission is known, when your principles are chosen and remembered, everything changes. You stop reacting to life. You start leading it. You become steady, less emotional, more intentional. The opinions of others shrink. The noise fades, because you're anchored to something deeper than validation, deeper than comfort, deeper than fear. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." That's the work. Not waiting for purpose to magically appear, but crafting it through reflection, through asking hard questions, through choosing deliberately what you will stand for and what you will never betray. So ask yourself now, what truly matters to me when no one is watching? What values do I want to live, even if no one claps? What would I still fight for, even if I knew I'd lose? This isn't a branding exercise. It's an excavation. You're not inventing a purpose. You're uncovering one beneath the layers of noise, fear, guilt, ambition, and approval seeking. The deeper you dig, the clearer it becomes. And once you find it, once you name it, it becomes your compass. a quiet force that guides your decisions, calms your doubt, and strengthens your resilience. You'll still face challenges. The Stoics never promised a painless life, but they promised that a life of purpose is one worth enduring for. You might lose a job, a relationship might end, plans might fall apart, but your purpose, that stays. It's not in the title, the salary, or the follower count. It's in how you show up, in who you choose to be when no one's clapping. And that kind of alignment between your soul and your actions is what builds silent confidence. That's what makes you unshakable. Look at those who've weathered real storms, those who've buried loved ones, rebuilt from failure, endured loss, grief, betrayal, and came out not bitter, but wiser. There's a common thread among them. They had a reason, a code, a compass. They didn't just survive, they moved forward with dignity. And in that forward motion, in that clarity of direction, they became stronger than the pain itself. In a world addicted to speed and sensation, purpose is what slows you down and brings you back to center. It reminds you that not everything deserves your energy, that not every invitation deserves a yes, that not every emotion deserves a reaction. When you move from purpose, you no longer live to impress. You live to express. You act from conviction, not compulsion. And the most beautiful part, you don't need to convince anyone. Your presence speaks it. Your decisions reflect it. Your peace proves it. So before anything else, before the habits, before the reframing, before the self-control, you need to find your compass. Sit in silence. Ask the hard questions. Write your code. Define your values. And then, commit. Commit like your life depends on it. Because in many ways it does. Without purpose, you'll be tossed by the tides. With it, you'll cut through storms. And that's where real mastery begins. 2. Mastering your mind to master your emotions. We live in a world that constantly tells us to follow your feelings, to trust your gut, to let emotions lead. But what happens when those emotions are shaped by fear, fatigue, or past wounds? What happens when your gut has been wired by years of self-doubt, comparison, and survival mode thinking? The Stoics taught a different path. They didn't demonize emotion, but they didn't deify it either. They saw emotion for what it is, a byproduct of thought. And if your thoughts are distorted, so are your emotions. Epictetus said it best, "It's not things that upset us, but our judgments about things." That one insight has the power to shift your entire life. Think of it like this. You're in traffic, someone cuts you off, your heart jumps, anger spikes. You slam the steering wheel, curse under your breath, feel your body tense. But pause for a second. What actually happened? Did that person's car physically enter your nervous system and inject rage into your bloodstream? Of course not. What caused the reaction was your interpretation of the event. Your story. He disrespected me. People are so selfish. I'm sick of this city. Thought triggered emotion. Emotion triggered reaction. Now imagine a different scenario. Same traffic. Same rude driver. But this time you think, maybe he's rushing to the hospital, or maybe he's just having a horrible day. That simple shift in thought softens the emotion. You might still be alert, but you're no longer furious. Your nervous system settles. You drive on. You stay calm. This is the power of mental framing. And it's not just about driving, it's about life. Your coworker ignores your idea in a meeting. You think, they don't respect me. Resentment builds. But maybe they were distracted or anxious, or didn't even realize it. Your friend takes too long to reply to a message. You spiral. They're pulling away. Maybe they're just overwhelmed. Maybe they're dealing with their own internal storm. Every day, your mind generates stories, and those stories either calm you or control you. This is why Stoicism insists on mastering the mind, Because the mind is the command center. If you let it run wild, you become a slave to every impulse. But if you train it to pause, to question, to reframe, you become a leader of yourself. Modern science backs this up. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, one of the most effective tools in modern psychology, is based on the very Stoic principle of thought awareness. By catching irrational beliefs, challenging them, and replacing them, we change not only our emotional state, but our entire behavior. But this isn't something that happens by accident. It's a practice, a discipline. You have to train your mind like a muscle. Start by noticing your inner dialogue, not judging it, just noticing. When something goes wrong, what's your default narrative? I'm not good enough. This always happens to me. Why bother trying? Each of those thoughts, if left unchallenged, creates emotional storms that feel real but are built on illusion. So the first step is to slow down, to introduce space between stimulus and response, between trigger and reaction. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." That power begins the moment you pause. Try this the next time something upsets you. Don't speak, don't act. Just breathe and ask yourself, what story am I telling right now? Then ask, is this story absolutely true, or is it just a habit? You'll be amazed at how often your emotional chaos is driven not by truth, but by outdated thinking patterns, fears, and assumptions. The more you do this, the stronger your awareness becomes. Eventually, you'll catch yourself before the spiral. You'll feel the emotion rise, but you won't react blindly. You'll hold it, breathe into it, examine it, and then choose your response. That's not suppression, that's sovereignty. This practice isn't about becoming robotic. You'll still feel, you're human. But instead of being hijacked by emotion, you'll develop emotional clarity. You'll understand the difference between a reaction and a response, between a wound and a truth, between a trigger and who you really are. Over time, this rewiring becomes your new normal. You'll stop being shocked by difficulty. You'll expect emotional turbulence, but meet it with presence, not panic. You'll stop looking for peace in perfect conditions and start finding it in perfect awareness. When the mind is disciplined, the heart follows. You stop oscillating between high and low, between overconfidence and collapse. You start living from center, with calm, with steadiness, with strength. And in a world of chaos, that kind of inner order is not just rare, it's magnetic. People will notice. They'll ask, why don't you ever lose it? And you'll smile, not because you're suppressing anything, but because you finally understand the game. It's not about what happens. It's about how you frame it. It's not about controlling every outcome. It's about mastering your perception. This is the Stoic art of thought discipline. And once you begin to build it, you'll wonder how you ever lived without it. Now that your compass is set and your mind is waking up, it's time to defend your inner space. In the next principle, we'll explore the art of guarding your mental gates so that only the thoughts, messages, and energies that serve your highest self are allowed in. 3. Guarding the gates of your mind. Your mind is your sanctuary, or at least it should be. But in today's world, it's more like a city under siege. Every day, without realizing it, we let thoughts, voices, headlines, and noise flood into our mental space. And we rarely stop to ask, who gave them permission? The Stoics believed that guarding the mind was not a luxury, it was survival. Epictetus compared the human mind to a fortress, not because it should be closed off, but because it must be defended. Just as you wouldn't leave the gates of a city wide open for anything or anyone to walk through, you shouldn't leave your mental gates unguarded. But that's exactly what most people do. We wake up, and the first thing we feed our minds isn't reflection, it's a screen. We scroll through notifications, outrage, envy, fear, highlight reels, advertising, comparison. Before we even get out of bed, our thoughts are no longer ours. They've been hijacked by algorithms, by headlines, by the subtle poison of other people's urgency. And then we wonder why we feel anxious, why we feel scattered, why we feel like we're falling behind in a race we never agreed to run. Stoicism offers a different approach, a quieter one, a more deliberate one. It teaches us that just as we nourish the body with clean food, we must nourish the mind with clean thoughts. That we are not obligated to consume every opinion, every drama, every digital flame war that flashes across a screen. Guarding your mind begins with awareness. Ask yourself, honestly, what am I letting in? Who am I giving influence to? Is the media I consume helping me grow or keeping me reactive? Are the voices I follow speaking to my highest self or to my insecurity? It's not about being judgmental. It's about being responsible. You can't build inner peace in a storm of mental clutter. You can't cultivate focus if you live in a mental environment designed to scatter your attention. Think of your mental space like a garden. Whatever you plant and water will grow. If you plant outrage, gossip, and comparison, you'll harvest bitterness, self-doubt, and distraction. But if you plant wisdom, stillness, discipline, and love, you'll grow strength, insight, presence, peace. One of the simplest ways to begin guarding your mind is to create rituals of silence. Instead of waking up to chaos, begin your day in stillness. Even 5 minutes of quiet reflection before the digital world gets its hooks in, you can recalibrate your entire day. Read books that sharpen your thinking. Reflect on timeless truths, not trending headlines. Journal, meditate, pray, go for a walk without your phone. Do something each morning that strengthens your inner gatekeeper. And on the other side of the spectrum, begin detoxing what drains you. You don't need to follow every influencer. You don't need to comment on every post. You don't need to attend every argument. Just because someone shouts doesn't mean you have to listen. Seneca wrote, "Associate with people who are likely to improve you." That doesn't just apply to people in real life. It applies to voices, to content, to what you feed your mind with every day. Are you surrounding yourself with ideas that challenge you to rise, with noise that keeps you numb? This is especially critical when you're emotionally vulnerable. When you're tired, stressed, lonely, or uncertain, your mind is more open, more susceptible. That's when the wrong messages can take root the fastest. So protect your low moments. Be extra intentional about your input when you're down. Don't reach for escape, reach for strength. You don't have to know everything happening in the world. You don't have to be plugged in 24/7. You don't need to chase every opinion, every update, every reaction. You need clarity. You need energy. You need peace. And that only comes when you become selective or ruthlessly selective about what you allow in. This doesn't mean hiding from reality. It means engaging with reality through a clear mind, a strong mind, a mind that isn't pulled in 1,000 directions by default, but centered on what matters. Guarding your mind is not about building walls. It's about building filters. It's about choosing what strengthens you and gently releasing what doesn't. Because here's the truth. Whatever fills your mind shapes your life. If you want peace, feed your mind peace. If you want courage, feed your mind stories of courage. If you want to stop reacting, stop exposing yourself to things designed to provoke a reaction. When you do this, when you commit to curating your inner world, you become unshakable not because you're detached, but because you're rooted. You'll stop getting pulled into every emotional tide. You'll stop being exhausted by things that never deserved your energy in the first place. And the people around you will notice. They'll see the difference. In your calm, your presence, your clarity. And they'll wonder, What's changed? The answer is simple. You stopped letting the world dictate your mind, and you started choosing your input, your perspective, and your power. In the next part, we'll explore what to do when the world does get inside, when criticism hits, when someone attacks, when words sting. You'll learn the Stoic way to handle insults, judgment, and misunderstanding without losing your peace or your dignity. 4. The Stoic response to criticism. Criticism cuts especially when it's unexpected, public, or comes from someone we care about. A single comment can haunt us for days. One sharp look, one sarcastic remark, one cold dismissal. And suddenly, we're spiraling, replaying the moment over and over, wondering what we did wrong, defending ourselves in imaginary arguments, feeling exposed and ashamed. It's a familiar pattern, but why does it hurt so much? The Stoics had a piercing insight into this. Criticism only stings when it strikes something unstable inside you. It only lands when it finds a weak spotan, unexamined insecurity, a craving for approval, or a fragile ego. Which means the power of the criticism doesn't actually belong to the critic. It belongs to you. You give it power through interpretation. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If an insult has no basis in truth, why be offended? And if it does, why be angry instead of learning?" That's not detachment, that's maturity. That's choosing growth over ego. Think about it. When a stranger insults you with something that clearly isn't true, maybe they call you lazy when you've been working non-stop, you might roll your eyes. You know who you are. You don't internalize it. But when someone says something that hits a nerve, maybe they call you selfish, or disorganized, or fake, and you're already secretly worried they might be right. It burns. You go quiet, defensive, sometimes enraged. Not because of the words themselves, but because of what you make them mean. That's where Stoicism does its most powerful work, not in stopping others from criticizing, but in training you to receive criticism without collapsing, to hear what's useful, to discard what isn't, to stay rooted in truth, not approval. But this takes practice. It starts with self-knowledge. You have to know what you stand for, what your values are, what your intentions were. Without that anchor, you'll be knocked around by every opinion, flattery, or insult. So when criticism comes, and it wouldn't react right away, don't defend or explain or attack. Just pause, breathe. Ask yourself, is there any truth here? Not, do I like it? But, is it useful? If you stake it, refine yourself, and move forward. If no, release it, like a wave crashing against a rock. A mature mind isn't afraid of feedback. It welcomes refinement. But it's not addicted to external validation. That's the difference between growth and insecurity. Sometimes, though, the hardest criticism isn't from enemies, it's from friends, family, people close to you. That's where it cuts the deepest. Not because the words are cruel, but because they shake the foundation of belonging. You feel misunderstood, betrayed, judged by someone who's supposed to support you. In those moments, Stoicism teaches us patience, gentleness, perspective. Instead of firing back or retreating, try to understand their frame. Why did they say what they said? What fears, needs, or blind spots might be driving their words? That doesn't mean accepting abuse. Stoicism isn't about being a doormat. It's about not letting other people's chaos infect your calm. It's about responding instead of reacting. And sometimes the most powerful response is a quiet one. You don't have to prove your worth to anyone. You don't have to defend every choice. You don't need everyone to understand your path. If you're acting with integrity aligned with your values, you can walk through judgment with composure. Seneca once said, "A good character, when established, becomes unconscious of its virtue." Meaning, if you're truly grounded, you don't need to defend it. It shows in how you live, in how you treat people, in what you let move you or not. Here's a truth most never learn. What offends you reveals you. If someone's words can send you into a tailspin, that's not a sign they were powerful. It's a sign something in you needs strengthening. That's not shameful, it's liberating. Because it means you can train it. You can build that inner armor, not by becoming numb, but by becoming clear. Clear about who you are, clear about what you believe, clear about what feedback is worth growing from and what feedback is just noise in the wind. Imagine this. Someone insults you, and instead of flinching, you smile. Not out of arrogance, but because you're not surprised. You've anticipated this. You've trained for this. You know not everyone will agree with you. You know some people will project their fears, their wounds, their expectations onto you. And you know that has nothing to do with your value. That's freedom. That's emotional sovereignty. And when people see you respond to criticism not with defensiveness, but with grace, they notice. They respect it. Because it's rare, it's powerful, it's stoic. So the next time someone criticizes you, don't let it shake your peace. Let it sharpen your character. Let it reveal where you still have work to do and where you're already strong. And let your calm be the loudest response. Up next, we'll go deeper into emotional resilience. Because not all offense is criticism sometimes, it's personal. Sometimes it's an attack. You'll learn how to take any insult, any offense, and transform it into fuel, into strength, into clarity. 5. Transforming offense into inner fuel. There's a moment, split second and sharp when someone says or does something that offends you. Your body tightens, your heart rate jumps, a flash of heat rises in your chest. You feel it, the impulse to fight back, to defend, to attack. Maybe it's a stranger on the internet. Maybe it's a colleague making a snide remark. Maybe it's a loved one, casually cutting deep with something that lingers long after the conversation ends. And here's the question Stoicism demands you ask in that exact moment. Must I react? Most people never pause to ask. They take offense as automatic, as justified, as something done to them. But the Stoics, radical in their clarity, saw offense not as an external event, but an internal interpretation. In other words, no one can offend you unless you let them. It's not that the world becomes kind, it's that you become strong. Strong enough to choose the meaning you assign to what happens. Strong enough to withhold your reaction not out of weakness, but out of power. Epictetus wrote, "If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation." That's not victim blaming, that's empowerment. Because if the offense depends on your mind, then you have the power to undo it, to transform it. Imagine what that would feel like, to walk through life no longer pierced by every comment, every tone, every petty jab, to feel emotions rise, but not be controlled by them, to choose silence where others lash out, to redirect the insult and turn it into insight. That's not passivity, that's self-mastery. Let's be clear. Taking offense doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. But remaining offended, letting it live in your head, define your actions, consume your energy, that's a choice. And too many people are making it unconsciously. They walk around carrying grudges like battle trophies, reliving conversations from years ago, waiting for apologies that may never come. Stoicism offers something better. Freedom. Not through forgetting, but through reframing. Not through denial, but through discipline. So, how do you begin? The first shift is awareness. When offense arises, pause. Name what's happening. You're feeling hurt, disrespected, threatened. That's okay. Don't suppress it. Just notice it. Create space. Then, ask yourself, what story am I telling? Are they really attacking me, or am I interpreting it that way? Is this about me or is this about them? What part of me feels threatened and why? 9 times out of 10, you'll find the offense touches an old wound, a fear, a belief you haven't fully examined, and now you have the chance to grow. This is where transformation begins. Let's say someone criticizes your life choices, your career, your values, your beliefs. Instead of firing back, consider, is there a seed of truth in what they're saying? If yes, thank them, silently. They've helped you refine your path. If not, why engage? Their opinion, unrooted in understanding, holds no weight over your direction. Another tool, empathy. Ask, what pain might this person be carrying? Often, offense stems not from your actions, but from their own fears, insecurities, projections. The person who mocks your ambition may have given up on their own. The one who insults your calm may be drowning in chaos. This doesn't excuse bad behavior, but it gives you distance, and distance gives you peace. And then perhaps the hardest, most liberating act, you forgive. Not for them, for you. You release the grip the offense has on your nervous system. You choose peace over poison. You let go of the internal replay that's eating away at your presence. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." In other words, the highest response to offense isn't retaliation, it's transcendence. It's refusing to become what you hate. It's keeping your dignity intact, your heart open, your purpose forward. One modern way to train this is to use what I call mental aikido. When something offensive hits, don't block it head on. Don't absorb it. Redirect it. Ask, how can I use this moment to sharpen my awareness? What strength is being called forth right now? Maybe it's patience. Maybe it's self-restraint. Maybe it's the courage to walk away. Either way, you've turned a jab into a rep training your emotional endurance. And over time, the results are profound. You become lighter, stronger, less bound by emotional volatility. People begin to notice that they can't get a rise out of you, that you're steady even when provoked. But more importantly, you notice it. You notice the power of not reacting, the confidence of restraint, the subtle, silent pride of walking through a fence without letting it change who you are. This is how you turn wounds into wisdom, triggers into tools, offense into fuel. Because here's the truth most never realize. The world will never stop offending you. Someone will always misunderstand you, criticize you, project onto you, try to provoke you. But the game isn't to stop the offense. It's to stop letting it own you. And when you do that, when you master this skill, you become untouchable. Not because the world is kind, but because your mind is strong. Next, we go deeper. Because some emotions aren't caused by others, they're caused by us. Shame, fear, the ones that rise from within and cripple us quietly. In the next chapter, we'll learn how the Stoics faced these shadows and emerged with power. 6. Overcoming fear and shame, from hidden chains to inner strength. Some battles are loud, public, visible, but the ones that shape us the most are often quiet, internal, invisible to the world. And among the most paralyzing of those battles are the ones we fight with fear and shame. Fear and shame rarely show up as monsters in the daylight. They whisper instead. They disguise themselves as hesitation, as doubt, as that sinking feeling in your stomach when an opportunity arises, but you don't feel ready. When a conversation needs to happen, but you stay silent. When your heart wants to speak, but your history tells it to sit back down. The Stoics didn't see fear as something to ignore. They saw it as a training ground. They believed that growth was impossible without facing the very emotions we try hardest to avoid. Epictetus said, "Men are not afraid of things, but of how they view them." And shame, in his eyes, was not a permanent scarret, was a faulty judgment we could correct. But first, we have to name it. Let's begin with fear. Fear often pretends to protect you. It says, "Don't do that, it's dangerous. Don't say that you might look stupid. Don't try that you might fail." But behind the mask of protection, fear is really about control. It wants certainty. It wants safety. It wants the known. And Stoicism, at its core, is the art of letting go of control where it doesn't belong. Ask yourself, what are you afraid of losing? Approval, control, comfort, and is that fear helping you grow, holding you hostage? The Stoics practiced a method called premeditatio malorum, premeditation of evils. Every morning they visualized what could go wrong, not to become anxious, but to become unafraid. By facing fear in their minds, they softened its grip in the world. Try this. What if the thing you fear most actually happened? You lost the job. The relationship ended. You failed publicly. Would it destroy you? Or would you adapt, rebuild, rise? When you answer honestly, you realize most fears are not fatal. They're uncomfortable, but survivable, trainable, necessary. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And that imagined suffering, the anticipation of pain, is usually worse than the experience itself. So instead of running from fear, walk toward it. Small steps. One conversation. One choice. One moment of courage. Each time you lean in, you prove something to yourself. Not that the fear wasn't real, but that it wasn't final. Now, let's talk about shame. Shame is more subtle, more corrosive. It doesn't scream, it whispers. It says, "You're not enough. You're not worthy. Who do you think you are?" Unlike guilt, which is about what you've done, shame is about who you think you are. And left unchecked, it becomes a cage. But the Stoics saw shame not as a life sentence, but as a call for clarity. They believed that no human is perfect and that our mistakes, our missteps, our failures can be our teachers if we let them. Marcus Aurelius didn't hide from his regrets. He wrote about them, reflected on them, used them to sharpen his commitment to virtue. He understood that shame cannot survive in the light of honesty. So if something from your past still haunts you, bring it into the light, not for punishment, but for perspective. What did you learn? How have you grown? And more importantly, are you still defining yourself by a version of you that no longer exists? Forgiveness is not just something we extend to others, it's something we must extend to ourselves. And self-forgiveness is not the same as making excuses. It's about owning your story fully, then choosing to keep writing. You are not your lowest moment. You are not your worst decision. You are not the opinion of someone who only saw you once in one chapter of a very long book. If you want to overcome shame, start with truth. Strip away the illusion. Ask yourself, what do I believe this mistake says about me? And then ask, is that true today? Is that who I want to keep being? Letting go of shame isn't weakness, it's strength, because to release shame, you have to first face it, with honesty, with compassion, with courage. And here's the secret. When you do, shame becomes fuel. It becomes empathy. It becomes wisdom. You start to recognize it in others. And instead of judging them, you meet them with depth. You've been there, you've come through. This is the heart of Stoic resilience, not the absence of fear or shame, but the transformation of them into resolve, into presence, into quiet power. Fear doesn't disappear, but it stops leading. Shame doesn't vanish, but it no longer owns you. And as you walk through life not pretending to be fearless, not pretending to be perfect, but simply grounded in self-awareness, something extraordinary happens. You begin to trust yourself again. You stop flinching at the future. You stop hiding from your past. You stop doubting your capacity to handle what life throws. You become whole. You become grounded. You become someone the world can no longer intimidate. Up next, how to prepare for the unexpected, not with anxiety, but with strategy. We'll dive into the Stoic technique of anticipating obstacles and how it helps you build unshakable calm in an unpredictable world. 7. Anticipating obstacles, building calm before the storm. Most people hope for smooth days. They pray for ease, for luck, for things to go as planned. And when life deviates from that script, when the unexpected hits, they panic, they fall apart, they lash out, they spiral into stress and anxiety, caught off guard by the very thing life has always promised: uncertainty. But the Stoics lived differently. They didn't beg the universe for comfort. They trained for discomfort. They didn't wait for the storm to come, they prepared for it. Not out of pessimism, but out of wisdom. This mental training was called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. It was the practice of imagining what could go wrong, not to suffer in advance, but to rehearse, to anticipate, to mentally strengthen yourself so that when adversity arrives, you're not surprised. You're ready. Marcus Aurelius, before meeting with foreign leaders or generals, would visualize the possibilities: betrayal, false promises, unexpected resistance. Not to become cold or cynical, but so that when those things happened, they didn't throw him off balance. He wrote, "Today you will meet people who are selfish, ignorant, deceitful," and yet he still chose to move forward, to do good, to keep his center. This is the key. Expect difficulty, but do not be defined by it. Visualize hardship, not to dwell on it, but to strip it of its power. Now, you might be thinking, isn't that just negativity? Isn't visualizing what could go wrong self-sabotaging? Not at all. There's a critical difference between anxious overthinking and Stoic preparation. Anxiety dwells, it loops, it paralyzes. Premeditation plans, it prepares, it empowers. Let's say you're about to give an important presentation. Instead of simply hoping it goes well, Stoicism asks, what if the projector fails? What if someone challenges your ideas? What if your nerves spike mid-sentence? Now, pause, breathe. Picture yourself responding with composure, redirecting the conversation, owning the moment, staying calm. You just rehearsed resilience. Or maybe you're facing a life-changer job transition, a breakup, a big move. Instead of avoiding the discomfort, visualize the potential obstacles: loneliness, rejection, doubt, and then ask yourself, what would the best version of me do in that moment? Who would I become if I faced it fully, without flinching? This exercise doesn't create fear, it dissolves it, because it transforms the unknown into something familiar, and the familiar is less frightening. This practice has a modern psychological parallel: exposure therapy. The idea that repeatedly confronting what scares you in measured doses reduces its emotional charge. The Stoics were doing this thousands of years ago, every morning in their journals and meditations. And the result? A kind of inner calm that doesn't depend on the day going perfectly. A mindset that can walk into any room, any situation, any challenge and say, I expected this. I've already been here in my mind. That's what makes Stoic calm so different. It's not the fragile calm of someone who's never been tested. It's the earned calm of someone who's rehearsed adversity and chosen strength in advance. And this isn't just about major life events. You can apply it to daily life. Before a tough conversation with a partner, ask, what if they disagree? What if I'm misunderstood? Can I stay centered? Before a long commute, ask, what if there's traffic? What if someone cuts me off? Will I let it ruin my peace, or will I respond with clarity? Before a creative project, ask, what if people don't get it? What if I fail? Will I still be proud that I tried? This is Stoic mindset in action. It's not about expecting the worst. It's about rehearsing the possibly so you can stay grounded in the actual. Because the truth is, the storms will come. Life is not going to go as planned. You will be tested. That's not a maybe, it's a certainty. But how you respond, that's the variable. That's the space where all your power lives. The untrained mind panics at the first sign of resistance. The Stoic mind breathes, focuses, moves forward. And here's the beautiful part. The more you practice this mentally, emotionally, even physically, the more confident you become. Not in the outcome, but in yourself. In your ability to face whatever comes with presence and poise. You stop needing life to be easy. You stop fearing the unknown. You start welcoming the challenge, no for the pain, but for the strength it pulls out of you. This is how warriors are built, not in the fight, but in the preparation for it. So ask yourself, what are you currently hoping goes smoothly? And what if you stopped hoping and started preparing? What if the power isn't in predicting the future, but in being ready for any version of it? In the next section, we'll explore how to build true inner strength, not just surface-level grit, but quiet resilience that endures pain, loss, criticism, and pressure without losing peace. 8. Building inner strength. The quiet power that endures. When we think of strength, most people imagine something external, physical toughness, loud defiance, control over others. But the Stoics redefined strength entirely. For them, it wasn't about how much you could lift her, how loudly you could push back. It was about how deeply you could endure, how well you could carry life's weight without collapsing inside. It was about composure, clarity, quiet power. And that kind of strength doesn't come from bravado. It comes from within. Marcus Aurelius faced plague, war, betrayal, and the deaths of multiple children. Epictetus walked with a limp, his body damaged by a master's cruelty. Seneca was exiled, manipulated, eventually forced to take his own life. Yet through it all, they remained centered, calm, purposeful. Why? Because their strength wasn't conditional. It wasn't based on mood, luck, or the approval of others. It was rooted in character. That's what Stoicism trains you for. Not the absence of difficulty, but the presence of something stronger within you than anything that could happen around you. So how do we build that? The first step is self-awareness. You can't strengthen what you haven't identified. Take time to reflect. What situations throw you off? What words trigger you? What failures shake your identity? These are not weaknesses to hide, they are entry points to training. Because every emotional reaction reveals a place within you that still depends on something external. Once you know where your fragile spots are, you can begin the real work, not of pretending to be tough, but of becoming unbreakable from the inside out. That work begins with consistency. The Stoics didn't wait until they were in crisis to train. They prepared daily, through journaling, through morning reflection, through voluntary hardship. They did hard things on purpose. When life sent them something harder, they didn't crumble. You can do the same. Start simple. Practice small acts of discipline. Waking up when you said you would, speaking with intention, choosing stillness over reaction. Each small win builds integrity, and integrity is the foundation of inner strength. Because when you consistently do what you say you'll do, your trust in yourself grows. And when you trust yourself, you no longer fear the unknown, because you know you can handle it. Inner strength also means learning how to suffer well. That might sound strange. In a world obsessed with comfort and convenience, suffering well feels outdated. But the Stoics knew suffering is not something to be eliminated, it's something to be transcended. and you transcend it by giving it meaning. Pain becomes purpose when it deepens you, when it strips away what's superficial and leaves behind only what matters. Think about your hardest moments, the ones that nearly broke you. Didn't they also shape you? Didn't they clarify what really counts? Didn't they reveal who you truly are? Seneca once wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." You don't build strength by reading about it. You build it by living through what most people run from. This includes emotional pain, criticism, rejection, loneliness, loss. Each time you stay present with the discomfort without numbing, escaping, or lashing out, you build a new layer of resilience. You prove to yourself, I can sit with this. I don't have to be ruled by this. I'm more than this moment. But this kind of strength is quiet. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand attention. It's the calm in your voice when others are yelling. It's the patience in your decisions when everyone else is rushing. It's the groundedness in your posture when everything around you is shaking. And it's contagious. People feel it. They notice the difference, even if they can't name it. In a world full of noise and reaction, your presence becomes a stabilizer, a mirror, a refuge. You become the person others want to be near, not because you're perfect, but because you're solid. But let's be honest, staying strong isn't about always feeling strong. Some days you'll feel weak, tired, confused. That's part of the process. Inner strength isn't about denying your emotions. It's about moving through them with dignity. It's about giving yourself grace, then getting back up. It's also about connection. Stoicism is not isolation. It's relationship with yourself, yes, but also with others. Find people who remind you of your strength, not by fixing you, but by seeing you clearly. Support and community are part of endurance. Even the strongest trees grow in forests. And above, all practice gratitude. Not fake positivity, but real acknowledgement that even in the pain, you're still here, still growing, still rising. Gratitude shifts your focus from what you've lost to what you still have, and that shift alone can reignite your strength. So ask yourself today, what would it look like to suffer well, to train daily, quietly, patiently, to become the kind of person who bends but never breaks? That's Stoic strength, not in the muscles, not in the armor, but in the mind, the breath, the pause, the peace that endures. And once you've built it, truly built it, nothing can take it from you. Next, we'll explore how restraint, not reaction, is one of the most powerful forms of self-mastery. You'll learn how the Stoics practiced control over their impulses, and how you can develop that same discipline in the heat of everyday moments. 9. Restraining impulse, the discipline that sets you free. In a world driven by speed and instant gratification, restraint is radical. We are constantly told, act fast, speak your mind, chase what feels good. Don't hesitate, just do it. But the Stoics asked a different question. What if power lies not in acting fast, but in acting rightly? True strength, they believed, is not how quickly you respond, but how intentionally. Because how many moments in life have been damaged not by what happened, but by how we reacted to it? The text you sent in anger, the words you blurted out and couldn't take back, the choice you made on impulse, only to regret it the next day. Stoicism teaches us that in every situation there is a gapa, sacred pause between stimulus and response. And in that pause lives your freedom, your ability to choose wisely instead of impulsively, to act from principle, not emotion. But in order to find that pause, you must first slow down. You must develop the ability to notice your inner reactions before they become outer behavior. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you are offended at any man's fault, turn to yourself and study your own failings. Then you will forget your anger." In other words, Don't let emotion drive the wheel. Use it as a signal to reflect, to observe, to lead yourself rather than be led. The modern world doesn't reward restraint. It glorifies the instant, the impulsive, the explosive. Speak your truth, they say. Let it out. But not everything that's true is useful. Not every feeling is meant to be voiced the moment it arises. Not every desire deserves to be fulfilled on command. In fact, one of the most overlooked forms of confidence is silence. The person who doesn't react, who doesn't need to prove anything, who can feel the fire rise and still breathe, still choose, still wait. This is not repression, it's redirection. A Stoic doesn't bottle up anger or fear. They examine it, they hold it up to the light. They ask, where is this coming from? What value does this reaction serve? If I act on it, will I become stronger, just louder? Let's take a modern example. You're in a heated conversation. Someone accuses you unfairly. Your first instinct is to defend, to interrupt, to escalate. But you've been practicing. You feel the surge, but you don't follow it. You pause. You listen. You respond, not with emotion, but with clarity. And just like that, the dynamic shifts. You've just taken back your power not by overpowering, but by out-centering. This is emotional martial arts, and it's trainable. Start with micro moments. The urge to check your phone during a conversation, the craving to scroll instead of sleep, the flash of irritation in traffic. Catch the impulse, hold it. Don't judge it, just notice it. Let it pass, like a wave, like a breeze, like any emotion does when you stop feeding it with attention. Then choose a better response, one aligned with your highest self. The Stoics saw every act of restraint not as a loss, but as a win. Every time they resisted a lower urge, they strengthened a higher part of themselves. Every time they delayed gratification, they proved they were free not from the world, but from slavery to the self. Because that's what unchecked impulses do. They enslave. The need to always be right, to always be heard, to always indulge. These are not signs of strength, they're signs of compulsion, of ego. But restraint, that's sovereignty. To hold back when you could lash out, to wait when you want to rush, to walk away when you crave control. That is strength most people will never understand because they've never built it. And yes, it's hard, especially in a world that teaches the opposite. But that's what makes it meaningful. Easy things don't change you. Discipline does. And here's the beauty. The more you practice restraint, the less you feel controlled by emotion. The more you pause, the more space you create between how you feel and what you choose. And over time, this becomes second nature. You become calmer, more thoughtful, less reactive, more powerful. People may not know what you're doing. They may not see the internal discipline it takes to stay composed when things go wrong. But you'll know, and that quiet pride, that unshakable steadiness, it's yours forever. Because restraint is not just about what you hold back, it's about what you protect, your energy, your integrity, your peace. And in a world that wants you reactive, distracted, and emotionally hijacked, restraint is rebellion. In the next and final Stoic habit, we'll go beyond control into surrender. Because even the most disciplined person must eventually learn how to let go, how to accept what is, without losing their center. We'll explore the Stoic art of acceptance, no as resignation, but as the most courageous act of all. 10. The courage to accept, letting go without giving up. You've built your compass, you've disciplined your mind, you've strengthened your presence, mastered your emotions, trained for adversity. But there's still one final shift to make, perhaps the hardest one of all. The shift from control to acceptance. At first glance, acceptance may sound passive. It may even sound weak, like giving up. like surrendering your agency to whatever the world throws at you. But in Stoicism, acceptance is not surrender, it's strength. It's not the end of action, it's the beginning of wise action. Marcus Aurelius, writing alone at night as Rome trembled through plague and war, said, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." That's not just resilience. That's radical acceptance. It's the ability to take whatever life gives you, not with bitterness, not with resistance, but with a grounded, quiet, unshakable presence. Here's the truth. Stoicism reveals: suffering doesn't come from what happens. It comes from the refusal to accept what happens. You lose the job. You're heartbroken. You get sick. A plan falls apart, and the mind races. This shouldn't be happening. Why me? This isn't fair. And maybe it isn't, but it is. It's happening, and no amount of mental resistance will change that. The Stoics taught that when we reject reality, we create unnecessary pain. We compound misfortune with mental suffering. We fight shadows. We waste strength. Acceptance, then, is not about giving up. It's about stopping the war inside your own mind, so you can use that energy to move forward. Because once you accept reality, you can engage it, strategically, thoughtfully, courageously. Imagine standing in the middle of a storm. The wind howls, the rain stings. You can't stop the storm, but you can stop flailing. You can plant your feet, you can breathe. You can choose your next move or not, based on fantasy, but on what is. That's acceptance. It's updating your mind to match the moment. It's saying, okay, this is where we are. What now? Let's be clear. Acceptance is not apathy. You can accept the loss and still mourn it. You can accept the challenge and still rise to meet it. You can accept the diagnosis, the heartbreak, the failure, and still show up with strength and presence. Acceptance is not the end of effort. It's the end of illusion. Because life doesn't owe us comfort, or fairness, or certainty. And the moment we stop expecting those things, we gain access to something deeper: freedom, focus, serenity. This applies to the small things too: the cancelled plans, the missed calls, the tiny annoyances that used to send you spinning. Acceptance doesn't mean you like these things. It means you stop giving them more power than they deserve. But how do you practice this? You begin by catching resistance in the moment. Feel it, that this isn't supposed to happen. Tightness, that why is this happening to me? Voice, pause, breathe, and simply name it. I'm resisting reality right now. Then shift, ask, what's within my control? What can I still choose here? That's the Stoic formula in motion. Control the controllable. Let go of the rest. You'll notice, over time, a subtle power emerging. The ability to navigate chaos without absorbing it. The ability to lose something without losing yourself. The ability to act with clarity when life is unclear. Seneca wrote, "A wise man is content with his lot, whatever it may be, without wishing for what he has not." That doesn't mean you don't dream, or grow, or stretch. It means you stop needing life to fit your script before you decide to be at peace. And that peace, the kind that's not dependent on anything outside of you, is the most powerful kind there is. You become a calm center in the middle of change. You respond to volatility with vision. You meet pain with presence, and that presence is rare. In a world addicted to outrage, to noise, to control, your calm becomes magnetic. People will ask, how do you stay so grounded? And the answer won't be dramatic. It will be simple. Stoic. I stopped resisting what I can't control. I started responding to what I can. That's the final pillar of emotional mastery. Not control, but acceptance. Not collapse, but clarity. Not giving up, but showing up fully in the truth of now. This is the end of our journey through the 10 Stoic practices, but in truth, it's just the beginning. These aren't lessons you learn once. They're disciplines you return to daily, like breath, like gravity, like the compass you carry within. If you live them, if you reflect on them, write about them, practice them, even when it's hard, you'll change. Not overnight, but inevitably, quietly, powerfully. You'll feel it in your reactions, in your posture, in your voice, in the space between trigger and response. You'll become the kind of person who doesn't need life to be perfect to remain at peace. The kind of person who walks through fire without being burned from the inside. The kind of person who, even when life is uncertain, remains certain about who they are. And in a chaotic world, that kind of presence is everything. You've now taken the first step. You've walked the mental path of a Stoic. Now, it's time to embody it. One breath, one decision, one moment of awareness at a time. You've just journeyed through 10 Stoic disciplined mental and emotional workouts, forged not in comfort, but in crisis. You've learned to set a compass of purpose, to sharpen the mind, to guard your thoughts, to face criticism with clarity, to transform offense into fuel, to confront fear and shame head-on, to rehearse difficulty before it arrives, to build strength through discipline, to master your impulses, and now to accept life as it is, without losing the power to change what can be. So here's the final truth. You already have everything you need. The stillness you seek, it's not out there. It's not waiting on better circumstances, or perfect timing, or someone else's approval. It's been inside you all along, buried under noise, reaction, distraction. And now, through these 10 principles, you've begun to uncover it. But knowledge is not enough. The Stoics didn't sit around admiring quotes. They trained, they practiced, they failed, reflected, and returned again. Because philosophy, to them, wasn't a discussion. It was a way of life. The same is now true for you. In the days ahead, you'll be tested. Not in grand, cinematic ways, but in quiet moments. A delay, a disagreement, an unexpected change, a harsh word, a moment of fear. These are not interruptions, they are invitations. Invitations to choose stillness instead of reaction, to pause instead of explode, to remember instead of forget. This is the daily work of mastery. And it's not glamorous, it's not always exciting, but it's real, and it's transformative, because over time, these small choices compound. They reshape your nervous system, your relationships, your reputation, your life, until one day, without effort, people begin to say, "There's something different about you," and they won't know what it is, but you will. You'll know it's because you've trained your mind to be still, you've trained your heart to be strong, you've trained your soul to withstand anything. You've become unshakable, no because life got easier, but because you got deeper. So here's the challenge. Over the next 7 days, choose one Stoic habit per day. Don't try to master it, just observe it, practice it, let it guide your choices, write about it, reflect. Notice how different you feel. Day 1, set your purpose. Day 2, catch your thoughts. Day 3, guard your inputs. Day 4, reframe criticism. Day 5, transform offense. Day 6, face a fear or shame. Day 7, practice deep acceptance. One day, one habit, one internal shift at a time. And if you find peace, even one serial, solid, centered peace, remember that it's not a fluke, it's who you can be, every day. The world will continue to spin. People will be reactive, outraged, anxious, loud. But you'll be still, because stillness is no longer a concept to you. It's a choice, a practice, a power. Thank you for walking this journey, for choosing depth over distraction, strength over reaction, philosophy over noise. If this video helped you, pass it forward. Share it with someone who's ready. Comment below with the Stoic principle you're going to practice first. And if you haven't yet, subscribe, because this is just the beginning of a deeper, calmer, more powerful life. And no matter what comes next, stay strong, stay grounded, and always return to the stillness within.